Welcome to my new video. I'm the PC Collector. On today's video I'm going to repair this Compaq laptop of mine, which stopped working a couple of weeks ago, mainly because of a dead hard drive, which I'm going to replace by a modern M2 SATA drive. In case you haven't seen any of these before, this laptop is one of those desktop replacements or mobile workstations which were very popular in the late 90s. By that time, a lot of people were buying computers as computers were becoming more affordable, and those people who were buying computers also wanted to use them for fun and not for work. The fact of that computers were intended to be desktop replacements is easily noted by the fact of the both the optical drive and the floppy drive are at the front on a very convenient position, and also the USB port, which commonly was placed on the rear on those laptops, is also on the side on a much more convenient ubication. Also, it has the common PCMSIA expansion slots, the printer port, the screen port, the serial port, and the docking station port, which were very common also at that time. As all or most Pentium 2 laptops, this one doesn't have an external charger. Instead, it is connected directly to the power outlet through a 3-pin cable. Also, as most Pentium 2 machines, it has a very oversized cooling, because those were restrictions imposed by the Pentium 2, which wasn't a very friendly architecture for the laptop. Hardware wise, this laptop isn't really special for its time. It boasts a Pentium 2 or 360 MHz with a 66 MHz front bus, 64 MB of integrated memory. Yes, until the late 90s it was common that laptops have the base memory integrated on the board. The laptop also has an ATI Rage 2 graphic chip, which became extremely popular on laptops in the late 90s, mostly because there was no other option. No other company manufactured a laptop chip which was capable of 3D acceleration by hardware. So if you wanted hardware 3D acceleration in a laptop, either you have a Rage 2 chip or you had nothing, because neither Nvidia or 3DFX made chips for laptops. While hardware wise this computer isn't anything outstanding for its time, it has a few interesting design quirks. First, the position of the floppy drive and the optical drive, which wasn't common at the front, and the position of the USB. It also was intended to be very easy to service by the user, because most of the serviceable components, except the hard drive, are below the keyboard, which can be opened by pushing these two small slabs. You can merely flip the keyboard, and you don't even need to disconnect the keyboard to service the components. Here you have the BIOS battery, Here you have the attachment for the CD drive, which you could only need to remove those screws and you could push the drive from here. And the floppy drive doesn't even have a screw, it can be loosed by pushing this slab here. Here there is the memory, as you can see, the additional slot, which I have populated with a second 64 megabyte module for a total of 128 megabyte, which is more than enough for Windows 98. At this point, probably some of you will be wondering how I plan to place this on a 1999 computer. Well, the answer is simple. Using this small thing is an M2 SATA to ID44 adapter, which can be used to place a modern M2 SATA drive on any machine which has an IDE44 connection, which is the case of this laptop. So you merely have to place the drive, the modern drive, here. You secure it with the screw like you would do on any modern computer. Place the cover. Screw it in if those microscopic screws want to get into position, and there is no less than 6 of them, because yeah, it's clearly going away if you don't place all the screws. The case is clearly going to grow a pair of small legs and go away walking. In case it is not evident, I've never understood why manufacturers put so many screws on everything. And this small case is not an exception. A small detail worth mentioning if you are planning of using on one of those adapters is that the external cover doesn't exactly fit the size of a 2.5-inch drive. Sometimes it is too wide, sometimes this hole here where the pins are is not big enough for it to fit on the connectors, so it is possible that you have to do some tweaking to the case. And now let's going to put this in the place of the original broken drive. Well, not the original, I have already replaced it once by a 100 gigabyte drive, which is now dead and in need to be replaced. Last time I make a dual boot with Windows 98 and Windows 2000, mostly so I could have access to external drives formatted on MTFS, since one of the purposes of this computer was serving as nexus between my modern computers and the older ones when I need to transfer something to a floppy or something like that. This plastic is in a very poor shape, is crystallized, and is very likely that you'll break it if you aren't careful. In fact, well, as you can see, it has happened already twice. but isn't really a big deal, because the only interesting or really needed part of this whole assembly is the part where the connection adapter is. So now we remove the drive, we place the new drive in, which requires to effect some force for it to actually fit the connection due to the issues with the case I mentioned before. I'm going to place the plastic parts as best as I can so the drive fits better. Isn't really a big deal that the plastic is broken, since this metallic part at the bottom will keep it in place. So yeah, of all the things which could have broken on this, those plastic things are hardly the worst ones. Okay, if I place the screw in the correct hole, maybe it will get screwed in to the case. No, this one. Now we put it back in. We place the cover back in position, and we are ready to start installing Windows on this thing. And well, we are ready to start installing Windows 98 in this computer. But first of all, we have to address one of the quirks of this machine, and it's that someone decided that it was a very good idea to store the BIOS utility on the hard drive, and someone at the headquarters decided that it was an excellent idea because it keep doing it until the late 90s. So yeah, the first thing we have to do is to restore the setup partition on the hard drive, which is a small hidden partition which contains the setup utility. Fortunately, I have the original the setup floppy, which I managed to find on the net, and it still works from the last time, which is a relief. It wouldn't be too much of an issue. I still have the original files, but yeah. It's worth noting that it is only the setup utility. The BIOS itself is on a CMOS, like in any other computer, so you could technically use it without the partition, but it's more convenient to create the setup partition. And we have to do it before, because it requires the drive to be completely empty so it can create the partition. Which is going to take a while because yeah, it's a drive. See, now we have this option which says run computer setup, which will be to boot it from the floppy, or install computer setup, which creates the partition. The diagnosis partition doesn't exist. Well, it is what I'm trying to do. Hello. this is the damn disk. Oh, yeah, I used the wrong floppy because this is the setup floppy. I need the friggin' diagnostic floppy because, yeah, not only is using this weird setup, but also is in using two separate floppies. So now we have to restart with the correct floppy. Yeah, I know, it's exactly what I'm trying to do. Create the friggin' partition already. This is I didn't remember this to be so stupidly complex. Just because someone decided that it was a good idea to make this utility to be on the hard drive instead of being on the CMOS like in a normal computer. And of course it has to check that the disk exists because it can't just believe the user. As you can see, it has having no trouble recognizing the M2 SATA drive because the adapter makes pretty transparent for the machine the fact that it's an M2 drive. The computer only detects a normal IDE 44 drive. Well, and the installation is apparently ready. So let's try and see if it works from the hard drive, and as it should. And it does. We are going to enter the setup. Yeah, for some stupid reason this computer needs to reboot to access the BIOS. And yeah, everything is correct. It has even kept the data. I'm going to check the boot order, which is set to first floppy, or well, multi-bay, because the floppy is in a multi-bay. Hard drive. Okay, everything is correct. So we can now use the Windows 98 boot floppy. Now we without CD-ROM, so it starts faster, because before I can install I need to actually format the drive, and that will require a restart, so there's no point on start with CD-ROM on this first one. It will only lead to a slower boot. Yeah, this says that it has not detected a partition on the C drive, and that could be because of a virus or whatever. No, you haven't detected any partition because there is no partition at all. So let's run fdisk. Yes, I want to install. Okay, let's see information, and there should be, yeah. As you can see, the only partition is the small one for the drive, for the BIOS. Let's create a partition, primary partition. Now it's going to check the drive. It's going to be relatively fast because it is, yeah, an SSD drive. No, I don't want to use the whole size. It only detects like 56 GB. Wow. On those computers I've had this, and I've been able to use the whole drive regardless. But for now I'm going to use a 10 GB system partition, which should be more than enough. Let's activate the partition, and now we have to exit and reboot the system.